Hey guys, welcome to Incredible Adventures TV. You are most welcome here. My name is ES and I am your host. Here you are free to be yourself and never feel. Today's video is a bit special for me because I'm going to take you into a deep dive slightly because I don't want to mess it up for my book. I'm going to take you into a deep dive into what things were like before I came here to the continent of Africa and what kind of led me down a really interestingly dark path many of you don't know. So what triggered this was a comment from a viewer yesterday. Let's just put it like this. They say to me, "You had my support until I saw this video." And so I clicked on it and I already knew what it was. It was a video from the past. We're gonna say something that happened to me maybe about 6 years ago in northern Ghana. Before I get into that, I just want to share with you all that I really appreciate you for taking the time to listen to all of what I have to say today. The reason why this is important is because I'm like thinking to myself, bro, you don't want to support me because of some shit that happened back in the day? Like, that was weird to me. But I blocked him because I don't need his support. I don't want his support. Because if something from the past can make you look at me like my character is flawed or that I messed up. Now, see, I can see if in the video, maybe I was some sort of prostitute, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I could see if it was something that was different than my situation, but I was literally kicked out on the street for standing up for myself. And yeah, I might have said some things, but it doesn't take away the simple fact that I was kicked out on the street for just being me. So what I want to share with you is what I was on before I even decided to go to this particular place and what led me there and why during that particular moment, I can't even watch the videos because I know that it wasn't me. Like, it wasn't me spiritually. I was in a dark state. And I want to share with you guys kind of like what it looked like, why I got into that stuff and how it just unfolded this craziness, guys. And I can't give you all the details because I actually share it in my memoir and it's more profound. It is one of the most craziest things I've ever been through in my life. Okay, so the reason why I want to do this here at Incredible Adventures TV, because many of the people that follow me at My Wish, My Command were there when I was at this first channel that I had when I first reached the continent of Africa. So if you come across anything, maybe someone sending you videos, look at her character, boo boo, bye. I am not that person. I'm sorry. You can try it if you want to. Go on over there with them, okay? Go on over there with them. You're not shaming me, but I will tell my own story though. Excuse me in advance. There's a ton of feedback, I'm sure, from the refrigerator, from the oven because I'm cooking, and then also they're doing something on the railroad tracks, I think, and some construction going on in the building next to me. So I'm here at an Airbnb, so that's why we have a lot of feedback, but do your best to follow along if you can, okay? Here at Incredible Adventures TV, many of you found me just recently. You know me as the woman wandering around Kenya, apartment hunting, eating suspiciously good food, meeting interesting people, and somehow turning every situation into a story. But what many of you don't know is that my first years on the continent of Africa were nothing like this, not even close. In fact, I came to Africa looking for power. And that's exactly where the trouble began. Now, before we continue, allow me to issue a formal disclaimer. This story contains grief, questionable decision-making, financial losses, spiritual confusion. Viewer discretion is advised. So before Africa, I was living in California, separated from my then husband after 13 years of marriage. There was no dramatic custody battle. The horse ranch that I was living at was beautiful, quiet, cold at night, the kind of place where a person should feel peaceful. But I wasn't peaceful at all. I was actually grieving. I missed my children terribly. I used to cry every day, every night. Not because they had been taken from me, but because life had changed. No one was taken from me. It was just the circumstances. So for the first time in years, I couldn't be with them when I wanted to. I had to rebuild my life. I had to work. I had to figure out who I was outside of being a wife and a mother. And I was struggling emotionally, terribly. And I was on YouTube. And one evening, the sorrow became extremely unbearable. I remember crying so hard that I couldn't catch my breath, and I felt completely alone. Excuse the train in the background. Emotionally exhausted, spiritually exhausted, physically exhausted. There were many things going on behind the scenes that I cannot discuss. The pain became so heavy that I started thinking things no one should ever think. I remember looking towards the highway and thinking, what if I just walk out there? What if I just step in front of one of those big trucks and just end it all? That's how low I had become. Looking back now, it really breaks my heart to think about it, because the truth is I didn't want to die. I just wanted the suffering to stop. I wanted the loneliness to stop. I just, you're young and you don't understand life. I wanted the confusion to stop. I wanted the grief to stop. And I didn't have anyone to understand me or talk to me about these things. I had reached the darkest point of my life. And then something happened, something I never forgot. Somewhere between the exhaustion and the surrender, I found myself in a place that was completely black. It wasn't frightening. It was not threatening. It was just black. It was peaceful, and I was just standing there. It was like warm and cool at the same time. I remember the feeling. And standing before me was this silhouette, like a dark human-shaped silhouette about my height. And I couldn't make out the exact details, only its presence. And suddenly it began pouring information into me. Not words, only understanding. Millions of ideas, questions, answers, concepts, and meanings all at once in a flash, millions of them. Everything was unfolding simultaneously. Every idea arrived with this explanation attached. I could see it, I could feel it, I could understand it all at once. It felt as though every mystery of existence had suddenly become obvious, like I could see the architecture behind reality itself. For one brief moment, I understood everything. I understood everything about life and why we were here and its purpose. And I just remember this feeling of exhilaration. I was so excited, like, thank you. And I began to feel this deep, loving presence, like love, like a love that I had never experienced before. It's unexplainable, but the only thing I was going to say we, because it reminds me of the NDE experiences, but I remember when they talk about this feeling of love and warmth, I felt that. I know exactly what they were talking about. It was amazing, and I did not want to let it go. I didn't. I wanted to hold it forever. I thought it was mine, or at least it felt that way. I remember saying thank you over and over and over again. I wasn't saying it, but I felt like I was saying thank you. Like I was so happy, like a child, like thank you, like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? The relief was overwhelming. The joy was overwhelming. The understanding was overwhelming. And then I began to wake up because I was in bed. And I could feel it slipping away, the details, the answers, the understandings. And I'm trying to hold on to every thought. And I remember thinking wait, why is it going away? And then a thought came over me, it's in you. But it was like trying to hold water in my hands. And then the details vanished because there was millions of them. But the feeling remained. I woke up crying. I wasn't sad though. I was filled with gratitude, with awe, with disbelief. I couldn't believe what I had just experienced. And although I couldn't remember every answer, something remained with me, a knowing, a certainty, a peace. And I understood that there was purpose in life. I understood the existence wasn't random. I understood that whatever I needed was already within. It was just a school of thought. And so looking back, it was one of the greatest gifts I had ever received in my lifetime. But life wasn't finished teaching me lessons. A few years later, my father passed away. And grief has a way of making people reach for things they normally wouldn't. But he was my everything because I was a daddy's girl. I owned it, loved it. I didn't even know what it was. I was just in it. I was in it, and I needed to see him again. Even with this knowing, even with these downloads of what this gift I was given of information, of intel, When he passed away, I felt alone because he was my protector. He was my protector. And then he had the nerve to leave. And instead of trusting what I had already been shown, I went looking elsewhere. At the time, I had been introduced to people who claimed there were other paths, deeper paths, paths of the Moors, paths of the ancients, African traditional spirituality, the hidden paths. They taught that Black people had been separated from the ancient sources of power, and reclaiming that power required connecting to spiritual systems, rituals, and ancestral practices. And to be honest, I believe them. Not because I was evil or that they were evil, not because I wanted darkness, not because I wanted to hurt anyone. I believed them because I was grieving. I was searching. I was vulnerable, and I felt alone, and I wanted to feel powerful. And I have felt that there was a tremendous amount of injustice in my life. And when you're hurting, certain things, can become attractive to you. When you're searching for comfort, when you're searching for maybe a loved one and you can't find them, you're searching for relief. So I didn't know that at that time. So I followed the path that was placed before me, and I dug deep because you have the internet, and that path eventually led me to Africa. And I arrived carrying a suitcase full of questions and a heart full of grief. I thought I was beginning a spiritual path, something that I was already enveloped in for years in America, trying to cultivate these ancestral connections through shrines, rituals, sacrifices, and things to that nature. It felt right at that time because I didn't have any other resource. I didn't believe in Christianity, the traditional form of Christianity or Islam or any of those religions. I had already studied those religions, and I felt as though I had graduated from them. They weren't enough for me. I needed to see power. I needed to see energy. And so when I embarked on that, I came across some really powerful people. From what it looked like, were able to enter into your dreams and make you see things, in your waking reality. Do a certain sacrifice or add some milk here and there, light candles, maybe sacrifice a chicken or a goat, and you start seeing things move in your life. You start to believe it, that's the absolute power. It's the African way. So I thought I was beginning a spiritual awakening. In reality, I was about to begin the greatest confrontation with myself that I had ever experienced. The deeper I went, the darker my life became. From fear, paranoia, manipulation, suspicion, control, a nastiness, a darkness that I had never experienced before, financial losses, broken relationships, emotional exhaustion. I encountered people operating from fear, people trying to control circumstances and outcomes, people trying to control other people, people convinced that unseen forces were responsible for every setback, every disagreement, every dream, every inconvenience. And when you live inside that kind of worldview long enough, you begin to lose yourself. You lost. I know it because I did it. For nearly 2 years, I lived in spiritual limbo after I was separated from it. And every now and then, someone sends me an old video from that period in my life as though they've uncovered some sort of secret. Trust me, I've seen the videos. I was there. I don't deny her. I don't hide her. She is a part of my story, but she is not who I am today. And the irony is almost funny now when people try to shame me for something that happened 6 years ago. I was spending a lot of money and losing it because of where I was, what I was doing. I was being trained to be this traditional spiritual leader for the people that follow behind me. And the universe or God said, hell no. And I had to learn a valuable lesson about that. So anyone that was in the vicinity, they're in that. That's their life, but it's not mine. That's not my destiny. That's not my fruit. That's not my portion. And I learned that. So for you who think you're going to somehow shame me from finding some old ass videos of me screaming for my life, for help. Yeah, I might have cussed some people out. How would you like it if you're thrown out in the middle of the street for just existing, for standing up, for realizing that you've been taken advantage of financially? I learned. Yeah. I traveled thousands of miles searching for answers that had already been given to me years early on a horse ranch. Outstanding work I did there, right? Outstanding. The darkest part wasn't the people. It wasn't the rituals. It wasn't the experiences. It wasn't the cussing and all of this. The darkest part was realizing how disconnected I had become from myself. I had forgotten what I already knew. I had forgotten the lesson. The power wasn't outside of me. Everything I was searching for had already been planted within me. What a gift. Eventually, I had to face the real challenge, not spirits, not shrines, not other people pretending like they got power. I had to face me, my fear, my shame, my guilt, the sorrow, the abandonment wounds, the anger, my need for certainty, my need for control, my need for answers. I had to sit with all of that, feel it, face it before I was even allowed access back into the kingdom. And slowly, piece by piece, I found my way back, but it was very trying. Imagine a state of limbo for almost 2 years, spiritual limbo. I don't even know if some people can even come back from that, where you're suspended without a divine presence, without divine connection, because you gave your power away. That's what I did. So when you try to go find videos of some old woman yelling and screaming or whatever, that was the darkest night of my life. That's not my reality anymore. Nice try. Today, when people hear me speak about spirituality, they sometimes assume I haven't experienced darkness. The opposite is true. I've walked through darkness. It's as if I died. So I've sat in despair. I lost myself completely. I've made mistakes. I trusted the wrong people. I believe things I no longer believe. I've encountered all kinds of personalities, belief systems, and perspectives, and I survived it all. Not because I'm special, but because human beings are designed to overcome. That is the work. That is the assignment. Not perfection, but overcoming and learning how to regulate our emotions, learning how to tell our minds how to think, our feelings how to feel, and our bodies how to react. And when you learn to govern your own entity, you are unstoppable and obviously very feared. It's not my problem. So when I look back at that woman crying, on the horse ranch in California, I don't judge her anymore. I'm not ashamed of her. I don't criticize her. I do not condemn her. I thank her because she stayed even during the trauma right there in northern Ghana, even when people were doing what they do. I stayed. And now I'm on the other side where I've always wanted to be. Egypt, Ethiopia, Tanzania, and now Kenya, the Levant. I'm coming once they calm the hell down. I get to be here with all of you today, sharing my story, laughing again, living again, and finally understanding what I was shown all those years ago, that it was always right there. So welcome to my incredible adventure where I am the hero and the villain, and I'm okay with it. Smash the like button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Yeah. ES in the building. Let's go. Yeah. Ooh. Nairobi. Ooh, feel that energy. No plans, no pressure. Yeah. We outside. Incredible Adventures TV. Unfiltered. No plans, no pressure, just energy. No pressure. Just vibes, we outside, we live.